Well, welcome in, folks. It's the latest edition of the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. I am the somewhat competent, sort of lucid, sort of rested, back from the Final Four host, TJ Rives. My co-host is the Mike Gill of the Sports Bash, the afternoon rage in Atlantic City, every weekday afternoon, 2 to 6 Eastern time on the ESPN radio station there. We're back to talk some sports media this week. Good to be back with you, my friend, as the month of March and the Final Four have now all culminated. But good to see you. We've got a lot to cover, from the NCAA Final Four coverage, the Sports Emmy nominations, the Masters golf is this week, and we've got a guest coming in that I'll explain in a couple of moments. But Mike, good to see you. Good to be back with you to chop it up and talk some sports media.
Yeah, always a crazy time of the year. You got the tournament, you're traveling. I got stuff going on here. The real world work gets in our way.
Exactly.
But we're back. We're back.
I appreciate you bearing with me bearing with you with the traveling. We were going to make this happen because there's too many takes. There's too much to discuss in the sports media world. Again, if you are seeing us, thank you for finding us on social media. Mike's Twitter, X handle, the same with mine. Mike's YouTube page, Mike Gill YouTube channel. So you're seeing us on video. You can also find us on podcast. Take us with you in your AirPods, your earbuds, your Bluetooth of your car. Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. Last Word on Sports Media podcast. That's where you can find us going over all of these subjects. Zach Gelb of the Infinity Sports Radio Network, what was CBS Sports Radio Network. They rebranded about a year ago. Infinity Sports Radio's afternoon guy, Monday through Friday. He will be here. Mike, I was with him at the Final Four. Zach's got some takes on the college basketball, the coverage, the ratings as well. And then we'll talk a little hockey too with him. I won't spoil it, but there's kind of a big deal with a New York famous announcer that's also done some national stuff, that's doing a farewell broadcast tonight as we do this Wednesday night. Some of you may be hearing us on the pod on Thursday, etc. But Wednesday night's got a big deal on a couple of television fronts. Zach will talk to us about the hockey front in a little bit. While we're here, let's begin with the Final Four. What were your thoughts? Exciting games in San Antonio. For the women's Final Four in Tampa. I left Tampa. I went to Texas. The women's Final Four in Tampa in Florida saw UConn win their first title in 9 years for Gino Auriemma. It was a blowout Sunday. 3 close games for the men's games, and the Florida Gators end up defeating Houston in the championship game. Mike, what were your thoughts, including the coverage, et cetera?
Well, I mean, you had a great championship game, but both the Final Four and the championship, you were there, were marred by choke jobs. I mean, Duke, I would imagine the number 18 million in the men's title game is at 20 million if Duke is in the final. So CBS probably wondering what if Duke gets into the finals there and you get two, games that look like blowouts, and to get the numbers that they got when the games were not hotly contested all the way throughout. Is a testament to that, because there was a lot of discussion. Last year the women's beat the men's game, and this year, while the women's did well, the men's game had a big number, highest since 2017, I think it was.
Correct. The Final Four average was the most in the last 8 years. The championship game number at 18 million is the most since 2019. So they saw an increase, and clearly it being on CBS helped. The last 2 years, or at least last year, it was on Turner with the UConn repeat against Purdue, but the audience is up 4 million, over 20% from last year. The close games helped. Having the best teams, all those number 1 seeds were for the best teams, Auburn, Florida, Houston, Duke, all year long. And something I'm going to talk to Zach about, I want your opinion first, the love-hate factor with Duke. That people gravitate to that, do they not? And do you think it helped that bump on Saturday, that people love a team to hate?
No question. And in all of college sports, they might. It's not the same. It's not the same. It's not Coach K, Duke, the Duke, North Carolina. I don't think it's the same. But I do think if there's one villain, whatever the significance is, Duke is it, right? I mean, we've lost all of these great villains in college sports. They've kind of gone by the wayside. Because
maybe Alabama football, Ohio State football's hated by all the other Big Ten rival markets. So maybe those two a little bit in college, but you're right. Yes.
Yeah, but maybe, and we'll see what Alabama. I mean, Alabama was not Alabama this year. I mean, they didn't even make the playoffs for the first time in the history of the playoff thing. So, are they losing? It's their luster as well. Duke, you know, Cooper Flag, interesting because years ago, I'm 48 years old. You had Christian Laettner, Cherokee Parks. You had these 4-year seniors that were like synonymous with the Duke program.
Mm-hmm.
And Cooper Flag being a freshman, you haven't had a reason to make him a villain, right? There's not like J.J. Redick became a villain because of what he did as a freshman, what he did as a sophomore, what he did, he built himself into villainous. We don't see these villains anymore. They're not around long enough. We had no reason not to like Cooper Flag. So
good point.
I do think Duke's brand in college basketball is still the strongest and probably would have helped that number out, no question. I don't know that it's the brand that it once was.
All right, and then let's turn to the finality of the women's Final Four. Average right around 4 million people on ESPN for the Friday night doubleheader. The final, again, got over 8 million people to watch on ABC. Now, 2 years ago, the Caitlin Clark final against LSU, where LSU won the game, had around 8 or 9 million. Last year, 19 million. And again, people went giddy, crazy. Oh, the women's game is more popular than the men's game. Please stop it. It was a transcendent player, a record-breaking player. That number is strong, all right? 8.5 million, what you're seeing on the video screen, is a strong number. It outdoes almost anything else right now in the world of sports, with the exception of football, to get that kind of a number. Regular season NBA basketball, the NHL that we're about to talk about, they would die to have 8.5 million people watching on a Sunday afternoon right now for the women's Final Four. But that number is also down almost 60% from what it was last year. And what we conclude from this is everybody gravitated to the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, and they're not ever going ever's a long time. They're not ever going to get back to that level again. Let me further submit that the most watched men's championship game is the Larry Bird Magic Johnson game, 1979. That was 34 million, Mike Gill. You referenced the early 90s, those Duke teams with Laettner, Bobby Hurley against UNLV, the Michigan Fab Five with Weber and Jalen Rose and Juwan Howard. The men's final would regularly get 30, 31 million in the early 90s when you go back and look. I again say the men are never going to get to 30 million. Again, it just doesn't appear that that's the case. No. We just have to accept this for what it is. But the men on an uptick after last year, and the women back to some reality, but that's still a very good audience. We have to say that. It's not like the women's game was 4 million on Sunday from ABC when 2 years ago it was 8 or 9 million. That would be more alarming. This is still a solid number. A follow-up thought from you before we move on.
Yeah, one team I'm thinking of, and I'm wondering if we can ever get, you mentioned the Fab Five. They had a branding behind them that made people want to see them. The only other team I can think of, I'm trying to think of, like, what's the kind of team that could grab people? I don't know they're going to get to 30. The UNLV teams, which is a non-traditional power program that just had characters on it. Tarkanian is the coach, but you had a lottery number 1 overall pick on that team and 4 other players who got drafted. Would that type of team happen today? I mean, you can make a case that Houston was that team with Kelvin Sampson, a well-known coach, and veteran players that had been there before. And maybe, Houston isn't the biggest brand name, but UNLV, that team there, that was one. If a team like that came into this era, I wonder if they would have had the same cultural.
It's a good question. But and remember the controversy around Tarkanian, and was he paying the players? So you had kind of the nefarious angle that all worked. Duke basically lily white basketball program. So you had a race angle of white against black. I mean, we don't have to delve into this for a long time, but you can't convince me that part of Caitlin Clark against Angel Reese and LSU, Caitlin Clark against South Carolina with their players, that there wasn't some of the white-black part for people to tune in. It's all different subplots. That part always sells, whether you're talking about team sports, whether you're talking about boxing, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah,
The race angle sells. It's sold, just one more point, with Bird and Magic. It's sold for that reason. Celtics, Lakers, it's sold for that reason.
No question. I will say this, to give Caitlin Clark, there's this whole feeling of, whatever political significance that she brings to the table. The marquee player in the game was Paige Beckers, who is a white girl. And she did not draw like Caitlin Clark. I think you have to acknowledge and say, look, this girl was something different that we really have never, what made her the person that drew everybody in? I can't answer that question. I mean, is it her game? She did something that we have not seen from a women's basketball player. Now, some people have said, look, Paige Beckers was Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark. Why didn't people want to watch her? I don't have the answer to that question.
I think the primary thing that people gravitated to is she was electric handling the ball and scoring. So was Paige Beckers. That's not to say that Juju Watkins this year in California wasn't electric with what she was doing. But the bigger component, she was breaking records. She was going to break the 3-point record for a season, for a career. She was going to break the all-time scoring record for women's basketball, which that chase last February and March made even millions more people come in. When is she going to break the record? I want to see her break the record. So, and Paige Beckers, to your point, wasn't close to breaking a record while they won the national title. So I think all those things are valid.
And she had the injury that out of sight, out of mind for a little while too.
Correct.
So that did something there. But I think I liken Caitlin Clark to Steph Curry. I mean, Curry changed the NBA. He did something that changed that league, how every team approached building a team with 3-point shooters. But he could do it at a level that no one else can emulate. That's why these teams failed to emulate Golden State. They tried to do what Golden State did, but they couldn't do it better than Golden State. That's kind of what she was. So she was somebody that no other women's team had, a handle who could pull up from 3 and 4 and 5 feet behind the arc and make it with regularity and then lead her team deep into the tournament. It wasn't like she was some sideshow on a mediocre team. She was taking them to the Final Four.
All right. Couple more things.
And a national championship game, which they ended up losing.
Twice in a row.
Yeah, twice in a row.
Then they were trying for redemption this time last year, 52 weeks ago. And that's part of why so many people gravitated to the Sunday title game. And look, due respect to Dawn Staley winning national titles. They were undefeated last year. They finished an undefeated season. People were gravitating to see, could Caitlin Clark win the national title before she was obviously going to the WNBA? And the WNBA and Iowa, we should mention her Iowa team, not just her and her teammates. Could they win it when they didn't win it the year before? That was another subplot for the ratings last year. All right, it is the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. Our guest, Zach Gelb, in a moment. He and I are going to talk hockey. We talked earlier in the afternoon. He and I are going to talk hockey briefly. Let's bring up the record-breaking moment for Alexander Ovechkin, who surpassed Wayne Gretzky on Sunday. Mike Gill, here we go again with a record-breaking chase for the NHL at the end of the season. And it was Sunday afternoon in the Capitals-Islanders game where Ovechkin got his 895th career goal. A record that seemed to be unbreakable has now happened with Ovechkin in his 19th year in the league, just like the 19 years, either 18 or 19, that Wayne Gretzky played, broke the goal-scoring record. This game was shown on Turner Sunday afternoon. The rating is in. It's the highest-rated game ever on Turner, non-playoff game. It's the highest-rated non-outdoor game on cable TV, not an outdoor series game, going back like 5 years to get over 1.5 million on a Sunday afternoon, Mike, for that record. Just say something real quick. Wayne Gretzky was there. Here again we go with a record chase. This had been a big deal in the Washington, D.C. area and in the Northeast. Where is he going to break the record? Against what team? He ended up doing it against the New York Islanders there in that situation in a road game, as it turns out, with Gretzky in attendance. Quick thought from you, Mike, on that?
Yeah, I thought the NHL did a great job, stopping the game and how they did it. If you listen to Kenny Albert was on the call, I thought he had a pretty good call with the significance, the number of the goals that was scored there. So good job, Kenny Albert, there on the call. Having Gretzky in attendance, I think obviously, I heard Gary Bettman on with John Oran's podcast last week, and he was saying he was traveling along with them, and that he was going to go wherever this was. I think the NHL did a good job of trying to make as big a deal out of this as they could. It happened in an afternoon window, which was kind of weird. It kind of got lost in the
sauce. So let me give you a story. I don't know where you were. We were in San Antonio after the men's semifinal games. We're trying to have lunch a little bit on Sunday afternoon because it's always a long night. Saturday night, you get to a little later lunch, and I'm at the table and I got an alert on the phone. He has broken the record, and we dialed it up and found it on social media in the middle of Sunday afternoon. So that hurt it a little bit because, again, you didn't know where the record, when and where it would come. He got a couple of goals in a game, Friday night, I think, and then he broke the record on Sunday. It was likely that it could happen on Sunday, and it ends up being an afternoon game, and it was also regionally, as you see on the screen, if you're with us on the video on the pod, it was regionally being shown by the Caps television partner, Capitals, and the Islanders. So there's 3 different calls of the Ovechkin big moment and that whole ceremony. And one other thing, it's wild that happened on Sunday, which is the 6th, and then you fast forward to Tuesday, which is the 8th. That's the anniversary of Hank Aaron breaking Babe Ruth's home run record, 1974, 41 years ago. So 41 years apart, the hockey all-time goals record is broken in 2025, and Aaron broke Ruth's record in 1974, later replaced by Barry Bonds, obviously in the 2008 season, 2008, that Bonds surpassed Hank Aaron finally. But that's wild that those 2 records, it's 2 days apart on the calendar, April 6th and April 8th. Mike Gill. Anything else on that? And then we're going to move on to our guest because we talk a little Final Four and a little NHL as well with Zach Gelb. Or are we good right now on the media?
No, I will say, as I mentioned, the NHL game getting lost in the sauce a little bit on the Sunday afternoon that this happened because, I was knee deep in a Phillies-Dodgers series that got a lot of attention. I do want to say Apple TV Plus, the game on Friday night, I know what their ratings are or who's watching them, but man, they just have tremendous production. I actually had Alex Faust on my show on the radio on Thursday. He did the play-by-play for the Philly game on Friday night with Ryan Spielborg. The production value that Apple TV brings, man, it is tremendous. The picture and some of the camera views, when Ohtani comes to the plate and they're right up there. I mean, you got to give Apple TV a bit of a shout out for that. But yeah, I missed the Ovechkin stuff because I was watching the Phillies game there, but I did flip over the highlights. I wanted to hear Kenny Albert's call on that.
And again, it was just starting, but they were going against the women's Final Four and everything else that happens on Sunday with NASCAR, with golf in this time of year, et cetera, that was going on. Auction value of the Apple TV broadcast. We'll talk a little more about the baseball later on in the pod. Why don't we get to our guest, Zach Gelb, again with me. I spoke with him earlier on Wednesday on the Final Four coverage. Again, you'll hear me say in the interview, I was around him. I was with him in Texas, I think. There we go. And there we go. We'll hear from Zach Gelb now on all of this, including me being with him at the Final Four as I set up the interview. We do that right now here on the Last Word on the Sports Media Podcast. I think we both survived. Plenty of Tex-Mex, plenty of cervezas flowing, and great college basketball this weekend. Hello, Zach Gelb of the Infinity Sports National Network. We love you on the afternoon show. I love being around you there for a little while in the Alamo City of San Antonio. Welcome aboard. Thank you for doing this. And wow, what are your thoughts off the weekend? Florida eventually crowned the champs.
Well, my thought about Florida is usually when a team wins a championship, TJ, especially in March Madness, and you know this, they usually win a game that they probably should have lost. Well, Florida did that 3 times in this NCAA tournament with UConn, Texas Tech, and then the championship game on Monday night. I'm not a second guesser in the moment. I just tell you what I feel. I picked Florida to win the game by 7 heading in. I thought they'd win 77-70 in a very close game. But down the stretch, I thought, right, Houston was going to win. And then the last 4 possessions were terrible. And it wasn't as if Florida really took advantage. But at the end of the game, I'm sitting there screaming at my TV, go, 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 go. And they waited and waited and waited and didn't get the final shot off. So pretty much when I look back at this Florida team, they were playing the best going into this tournament. They didn't even play their best in the NCAA tournament, but it was clearly more than enough, and it's because of their resilience.
Love it. Love the X and O breakdown. We do a little sports media here that I have you here with, and you're a media maven right now. What about the event? You've now been around it some. I have had the privilege of being around this event now going back since the 1990s because I'm older than you. It's amazing what it's become with the live concerts, the football stadiums. Just give me your point of view on the event.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of basketball being played in a football stadium, but I know the NCAA, they want to make as much money as possible. So I'm not going to sit here and trash that. Bottom line is I just want good games. And a lot of people were complaining, oh, there's no Cinderellas. And right now I'm old enough to know when there are Cinderellas, people then say, oh, well, there's too many Cinderellas. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Make up your mind, people, what you want. The bottom line
is, people,
yes,
pick a lane that you're going to be.
Pick a lane. That's what we need, TJ. And the bottom line is we had 2 awesome, not just good, awesome semifinal games and then a tremendous national championship game. So I'm more than fine with this being the year where 4 number 1 seeds all got there. And I don't think Cinderella is now going to disappear as much as people think. We got spoiled the last few years with 2 16 seeds beating 1 seeds, and how many 15 seeds did take down 2 seeds as well.
But look, it's not a nuclear secret, as I love to say, that suddenly there are 4 million more people on average watching Saturday and Monday night because you had the Cooper flag effect and powerhouse teams, 2 of them from the SEC, 1 of them from the Big 12, as well as the Duke factor. And the Duke love-hate factor is another part of this. When you go all through the history of Final Fours and championship games, they always have 2, 3, 4 million people watching because, Zach, they hate them. The love-hate thing of like the Yankees or the Cowboys or the Lakers or Alabama football, it's there with Duke. That's going to bring more eyeballs because of the hate. Yes?
Yeah, I would imagine. I don't know. Like, I know Duke is still hated. I don't think they're hated as much now without Coach K, and I don't think there was a villain. There wasn't a Leitner or a J.J. Redick on this team. I know how great Cooper Flag is, but I didn't watch Cooper Flag and be like, I hate this guy's guts, to be honest with you. But the biggest takeaway from the tournament, and the way that I'll remember this tournament, is that Duke choked. That's the number 1 thing. We're going to do top 5 moments from the tournament coming up later today. And my number 1 moment, I'll give you this exclusive. How about this of myself?
Give me the preemptive number 1 is going to be
Duke choking. I was at 28-3. That was the most stunned I was ever walking out of a building. The second most
Patriots Super Bowl Falcons. Yes,
yeah. The second was this one because there's no signature moment from Houston in that game. That was just an epic choke job up 6 with 34 to play by the Duke Blue Devils.
Well, the moment, and I was in the media overflow at the end where Cooper Flag was trying the turnaround jumper. That was the moment to win the Final Four game, and he missed. And forever, that's it, because he's going to go on to the NBA. We know that. That was the moment to put them into the title game, and it didn't work out. Interesting, you paralleled it to the Falcons' complete collapse against the Patriots, the 28-3 game. Which, if I'm not mistaken, was that Houston also? I think that's Texas. I think that's Houston.
Yes.
Was it Atlanta? It was Houston.
No, it was Houston. It was at NRG Stadium.
So Texas collapses in Texas, and even the Cougars coughed it up on Monday night as well. All right, a couple more things with you.
Wait, real quickly, just on the ratings. The ratings were enormous for this NCAA tournament, and also, I know a lot of people are saying, and I like the women's game, but people are saying, oh, the women's tournament's becoming better than the men's tournament. The ratings don't reflect that. And how many people who just try to criticize Caitlin Clark, and some people, they try to race bait and they'll be like, oh, well, people only like Caitlin Clark because she's white. Well, Paige Beckers is white and she's entertaining and she won a championship and the ratings were down. So I think we could put that narrative that we only watch Caitlin Clark because she's white.
And look, the women's rating is a smashing an 8.5 million on a Sunday afternoon for anything other than the NFL. That's tremendous, but it's not going to touch what all of that was at once. You know this, and the smart audience knows this, that Caitlin Clark breaking records and trying to win a national title last year after having come up short the year before and trying to the redemption, and it didn't happen again. South Carolina beat them a year ago. You had a lot of things involved there, but Yeah,
She's Steph Curry. That's what she is.
And by the way,
that's how I view it.
Transcendent player to the WNBA, where their audience has tripled and quadrupled, and it'll continue to succeed there. The interest that's there. I want to bring this to hockey of all things with you, because you're a Rangers hockey guy. We do, I understand, but as we do this media pod, they're saying goodbye to Sam Rosen, the longtime television historic voice of the Rangers, with a national TV broadcast, and they're reuniting him, and it feels so good, with John Davidson, who he did the games with for so many years on MSG in New York. What do you make of that? You're a New York guy. The national audience is somewhat familiar with Sam Rosen, not as much recently, but this is a neat tribute they're doing with him on Wednesday night at the end of the season, right?
Yeah, so I would understand maybe if the national crowd's like, why the heck do I care about Sam Rosen? Why do I care about the Rangers? Like, if this was football, maybe it's different. If it's NBA, maybe it's different. But the NHL has done a really good job, and I give Gary Bettman credit for this, for making local events very big that play well nationally. With the Stadium Series that we've seen, the Winter Classic. And this is an opportunity where, let's be real, who's talking about the NHL outside of Alexander Ovechkin right now? And you get people like yourself, TJ, who bring me on and then talk about something that's involved here. So Sam Rosen is an absolute legend. It's a shame that the team couldn't send him out on a better note, because that team has been gutless this year, and it's been the most hated Rangers team of my lifetime. But Sam Rosen is a legend, and it's nice to see him still go out when he's on the top of his game, even though the Rangers are nowhere close to the top of their game.
It. And then we had the Ovechkin thing from Sunday that was going on during the day, and obviously the women's title game. But that's a moment that crops up like once every 25 or 50 years, where you break an all-time record like that, breaking Gretzky's record, and he was very magnanimous, and they got a decent bump in the audience on Sunday. I mean, the NHL is what it is, but this is just a nice touch here to send those guys out.
And you know what's crazy?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you take away all of Wayne Gretzky's goals, he still has the most points in the history of the NHL. Jaromir Jagr is still at 2.
The best mic drop after all the magnanimous stuff about Ovechkin passing him with the goals record is if Wayne had done the ultimate mic drop of, "This has been great. Alex, you're tremendous. Now go get 1,300 more assists, baby, and I'll see you on the all-time list," and then mic drop it and walk off. That's what he should have done, Zach Gelb, on Sunday, but he's too classy to have done.
And
1,300 more assists to catch his point total. That ain't happening for Ovechkin or anybody else.
No, it's not, and that's why Wayne Gretzky is the greatest hockey player, obviously, of all time. But what Alexander Ovechkin was able to do, no one ever thought that record was going to be broken, and for him to do it in the same amount of games is the big one for me.
It's crazy. All right, I know you got to go. We got to go as well. So now you pivot to like NFL draft. We've got that going on, the NBA playoff. We got the Masters this weekend. I got the Masters hat in the shot on the video. I'm big into the Masters. What do we pivot to on Infinity Sports Radio weekdays? We got to engage. We got to listen to you.
Yeah, so obviously we'll have a full Masters breakdown today with Alex Myers. He does a great job, and I always love bringing him on to preview the Masters. We're still talking some NCAA tournament, and also, let's be real, national radio, college football, NFL. We're in draft mode. But we have Ian Eagle coming on today, and here's what I want to know from a sports media world. Ian nominated for Sports Emmy play-by-play. His son is as well. Is Ian hoping he gets it or his son gets it? That's the big exclusive that we'll have today.
What if they do the co thing? There's some that believe they're going to do the co. Lame from you, but I mean, they could do that. They could cop out. It's political.
We have enough opinions in this world. We should be able to pick one Sports Emmy play-by-play person.
I know.
No co-participation trophies.
No participation trophies. Listen, you participated with me. You're tremendous.
Where's my trophy?
Where's your black hat? You had the black hat on the photo that I put on social media. The black hat was always the bad guy in the Westerns. You're not a bad guy to me, but it was great to see you in Texas. Thank you for popping on
Big
the
Tex
last word.
and TJ hanging on out. It was a good time seeing you.
We were just hanging out. Zach and TJ hanging out at the Final Four. Love having you on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. Keep knocking them dead weekdays. Zach Gelb on an Infinity Sports Radio affiliate near you, on their app, through Odyssey, etc. Thank you, my friend.
You got it. Appreciate it, TJ. Let's do it again soon.
Love him being with us. You want to add to that you worked with Zach Gelb for a while in the Philadelphia market. He's been an up-and-coming broadcaster for the better part of about a decade. Mike Gill as well, to all of the takes, right?
We worked for the same company, not directly in the same building, but we both worked for the same parent company, and I know Zach pretty well from that time. He was, a student at Temple, and then he got a job in Trenton and was the afternoon guy at the Trenton town square, and I'm at the Atlantic City town square. So we did work for the same
and he
company
contacted me. He stayed in contact with me. I met him about 12, 13 years ago, and he's been on the rise again. He's on weekday afternoons on that network, never short on the takes.
Very hard worker.
Yeah, I love him. And now let's pick up on the sports media part of this. Again, coming up here in a little while as we do this live, the Sam Rosen, John Davidson broadcast. Again, it's not as big a deal if you live like in the Midwest, in the West, but this guy has been New York Rangers hockey for more than 40 years on TV. So it's going to be kind of cool to have him on nationally for one last big game. And Davidson did all the biggest games on Fox back in the 90s and the early 2000s with both Fox and then with ESPN in their booth for the NHL. So it's kind of nostalgic tonight, and we'll see what the number is.
Well, it's funny because, I don't get the Rangers games where I live. So I did know Sam Rosen did the Rangers, but I remember him doing Fox NFL Sunday games.
Right.
He was on one of the lower teams, but you always remember him doing some of those games there. I'm familiar with the pairing of Davidson, and I do remember Davidson as part of national broadcast, obviously. But yeah,
he was with Doc Emmerich on Fox before Doc Emmerich came to NBC, and NBC got the hockey. Davidson was also with Gary Thorne doing the games on ESPN, Stanley Cup playoff, Stanley Cup final for a few years as well. Rosen always famous for the "it's a power play goal," and they would echo that through Madison Square Garden. Unfortunately, like Zach said, your Flyers in the market and the Rangers, neither one are going to make the playoffs here at the end of the year. So it's kind of a play out the string game.
And the Flyers have not made the playoffs now for 5 years. But there is a free agent broadcaster available now because John Tortorella got fired. And remember, he did work at ESPN. We'll see if he goes back down that route.
Torch, Stanley Cup win with the Lightning back in 2004 as well. All right, so he brought up the Sports Emmy Award nominations. We'll move through a couple of topics real quick before we're done, 2 or 3 more topics. He brought up the Sports Emmys that are out, the 2 Eagles, Ian Eagle, Noah Eagle, both being nominated for Best Play-by-Play for 2024. What's your take? It's the first time ever father-son in the same Emmy Awards cycle. What's your take, Mike Gill, on some of the Sports Emmy nominations and who might get that?
I think Ian Eagle, by the way, was excellent in the NCAA tournament. We forget this is the second year he's taken over for Jim Nantz, and I think he has added, the team of him, Rafferty, Grant Hill. I'm indifferent on Grant Hill. He doesn't add a whole heck of a lot to the broadcast, but Rafferty's still at the top of his game. I think
by the way, Bill Raftery nominated for Best Analyst in 2024 as well. One of the 5 nominees for Best Analyst on a live game.
Yeah, and this is no disparage against Noah Eagle. I don't know that he's at the Emmy level yet. I think, he does a solid job for as young as he is and as inexperienced as he is. He's gotten a lot of opportunities. I think he's done a great job with them. I think there's a lot of other people that possibly could have been nominated in that role for an Emmy there. But his father, as the lead guy on the NCAA tournament, I think last year taking it over, and this year I thought he was excellent this year.
Joe Davis on Major League Baseball on Fox is also nominated for top play-by-play. Back to the analyst. Greg Olsen nominated, even though he's no longer on the number 1 Fox team. That's Joe Davis's partner in the NFL, by the way. Davis nominated for his baseball work. Olsen nominated, not surprisingly. Tom Brady not nominated. We should point out Tony Romo's not nominated as live game analyst. Neither is Chris Collinsworth on top game analyst. But what do you make of that? That the folks with the Emmy nominations give a nod to Greg Olsen in that regard. It could be interesting if he. I don't know if a guy on a number 2 crew has ever won the Emmy for Best Analyst before. And that's not to disparage all the guys that work on the 2 or the 3 or the 4 crew. You're still on network TV working the NFL, but this is an interesting angle real quick. Just one more on Greg Olsen.
Yeah. And listen, I think a lot of people, I think it was definitely, and keep in mind, correct me if I'm wrong. You mentioned not guys on the second
team
broadcast teams have been nominated. And then Greg Olsen did it, but a lot of people were clamoring for Olsen as the better broadcaster than Brady this year. Right. I know I was tough on Brady, and not a lot of people, were disparaging on Olsen. In fact, a lot of people were wondering, hey, we miss Olsen. We wanted Olsen. There wasn't a lot of negative stuff on Olsen. He got a lot of good reviews. Troy Aikman, I know he's on this list.
He's on the list too for the analyst. John Smoltz.
I think he's one of the bits. Smoltz is okay. Not the biggest Smoltz guy for baseball. And obviously baseball, but him and Joe Davis, there's something lacking there. I feel like there's something.
Not enough spark for you. Not
maybe.
enough.
And
not
I
enough
like
back
Joe
and forth.
Davis. I like Joe Davis too. I think he does he hits some homers, man. The Ohtani shot that he called the other night, the walk-off, he's had some tremendous moments, and he has that bang, but there's something that lacks when him and Smoltz do a game together. I don't know if they sound too monotony sometimes or what.
All right, so they'll give out the Sports Emmy Awards later this year. A few minutes left with you and I chopping it up on the sports media topics. While we're here, I mentioned the Masters. That coverage is coming this weekend. The hat's over my shoulder, like I said, with Zach Gelb. I don't know how much you're into this. No Tiger Woods. Tiger did not even show up at the Champions Dinner, which is like the distinguished thing at Augusta. Couldn't even be there after the Achilles surgery. That was strange. We'll see how this plays out with the audience. Obviously, Rory McIlroy has never won the green jacket. You've got the live golfers like Phil Mickelson, like Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm, that are all back. Phil's won it before. Rahm's won it before. Dustin Johnson's won it before. DeChambeau has not won it before. So this will be interesting to watch on the Masters Online and CBS for this weekend. Are you into it at all a little bit for the coverage, Mike Gill?
Oh, yeah. I had Cam Rogers on my show today. He's great with the betting tips and gives you all the nuggets. He had the Tiger Woods podcast. He talked about Tiger not being there. He doesn't anticipate Tiger will even be ready to play again next year either. It's about a year injury, and at his age, we might not see Tiger ever play.
I think we've basically seen the end of him in competitive golf. Maybe a little Champions Tour golf here and there, but we've basically seen the end of Tiger. I would agree with that. But does the rest of this interest you? Usually the Masters will get 6, 7, 8 million people on Sunday to watch for the final round. So we'll see.
Well, and last week, the PGA is pulling away. Liv's getting, nobody's watching it. I mean, Fox has the contract. It was on FS1 last week. No one's paying attention to it.
They put the final round on Big Fox. They put the NASCAR on FS1, and on Big Fox, it got right around 450,000, nowhere near the PGA Tour rating of about 1.3 million, with no names basically in San Antonio. How about the golf was in San Antonio while I was there for the Final Four as well. So it may take a little time for the Live Golf Tour to register 1 million people watching on any of their stuff, but it did not do well.
Which is interesting because they have big enough names that you would think or would draw viewers. So
here's the other fundamental thing, just real quick. We don't have to get into all of it. The Saudis don't care. They have so much money. It's not a money losing thing for them. They've been losing money for the last 3 years by tens of millions of dollars. They're trying to get publicity out for the product, but they could afford for this thing to continue to lose money for the next 3 or 4 years if they want to keep it going. Crazy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them. So
I know.
Let's see if that moves on.
It's an interesting case study, though, of you have big enough names.
Mm-hmm.
What is it because because of the Saudis being involved? Is it just because they don't know enough about the league? What they're doing? Do they not?
I think
like
part of it was for the previous couple of years, it was like a threat privately and unwritten. Do not give this any attention, Golf Channel. ESPN, do not talk about this because the PGA Tour may look to box you out if you legitimize this. That I know that was legitimately going on. Don't cover this. Don't have live people at their events talking about it. Don't put it on your .com. Golfchannel.com didn't have the Live Golf scoreboard prominently on their front page. That's all they do is cover worldwide golf. So I believe part of it was let's ignore them for the first couple of years. And now you can't ignore it with the players they have and the television deal they have. So let's see if it gets any better for this year. And we'll see what the numbers are for the Masters at CBS. Couple more topics. Broadcaster news. ESPN and SEC network broadcaster Taylor Zarzour has been named as the new voice of the Tennessee Titans on radio. You know Zarzour from working SEC network football as much as anything. He's a former local sportscaster in Tennessee as well as in Alabama. So he replaces Mike Keith. Mike Keith left the Tennessee Titans. He's been the only announcer that the Titans have had since they moved from Houston to Nashville over 27 years of doing the Titans. Mike is now doing the University of Tennessee football, basketball broadcasting back to his alma mater. So interesting. Taylor Zarzour put out a video. The Titans announced this on Monday. He will take over as their new radio voice. Some are familiar with him from the TV. You have a quick thought on that, by the way, on Taylor Zarzour?
Actually, I do. People would say, how the heck would Mike Gill in Atlantic City know Taylor Zarzour? I program our radio station. I believe he is the play-by-player for Touchdown Radio with Gino Torretta on their coverage of college football.
He's done
Saturday.
some of that. Yes. Some of that. Yes. Correct.
So, yes, I have heard his work on radio as a play-by-play.
He was doing the SEC network the last couple of years, but you're right. He had been with Gino, the former Miami Hurricane, the Heisman Trophy winner, and his syndicated national Touchdown Radio games every week that have been running all over the country, including on your station.
Which is ironic because I got an email from Touchdown Radio, Matt Sampson today about, I didn't read it yet, but I did see his email in my box. But
Matt, if you're watching, he'll get back to you. Mike Gill will get back to you.
It's funny how, the names, they cross over. I've got Sports USA, Lyle Gordon's email sitting in my box right now. I'll throw this out there. If you're a radio station, they do the Stanley Cup. So if you want to air the Stanley Cup, Sports USA,
they have it.
Robert Blum over there, I'm sure at Compass
from
Media.
Compass.
I get emails from them for the stuff that they're getting ready to do. Westwood One, by the way, which has updates on the Masters, probably might be too late to get them. They do 60-second updates if you want to run them and get them sponsored. But they are adding major tennis updates for radio stations now. And they're also doing, College World Series, women's softball. They do. Westwood One really has a vast library of things.
And they've had a long relationship with the Masters. And so Westwood One will have the live call. Kevin Kugler, I believe Charlie Reimer's been in the 18th booth along with some others.
They don't do the long form Masters anymore.
So they don't have it any longer. Interesting. And who has the long form then, if that's the case?
I do not know.
Is it just through masters.com potentially with their announcers as well? And Sirius XM, that may be the case. I
don't know who has them because we used to carry the long form on Masters.
I believe it is masters.com, their site, and Sirius XM and PGA Tour Radio have it as well if you're subscribed.
Westwood One will carry the PGA, I believe, in long form.
Yes.
They do the Masters. They don't anymore. PGA. But the question I have as we get ready to get out of here is Sunday Night Baseball is on ESPN Radio. We know that potentially is going away. Would Westwood One pick up a Sunday Night Baseball package or the playoffs? Because if you're an ESPN Radio affiliate, you are no longer going to get the World Series.
If that deal goes away, I'm going to blow your mind in the final couple of minutes of the pod. Westwood One used to have the baseball playoffs and the World Series because the old CBS radio incarnation had the baseball playoffs and the World Series. So Westwood One had it probably into the late 90s. That's when ESPN Radio got it. They've had it ever since. Is that relationship dissolving? We shall see. There's some belief that Major League Baseball and ESPN will come back together in some form. I suggested this. I'm going to run it by you one more time. I mean, the Sunday night game this past Sunday night, you talk about terrible ratings. It was a blowout game. The Red Sox killed the St. Louis Cardinals, but there were barely 1 million people watching. When that Sunday night game used to regularly get 5, 6, 7 million people watching, there's a fifth of the audience, an eighth of the audience now watching this early in the season on Sunday night. There's some belief that maybe a hybrid deal can be worked where maybe the MLB network will televise it, but ESPN might produce it with their announcers, similar to what the NFL network did with, hey, we'll run the game, but we have Jim Nantz and Tony Romo calling the game and CBS producing it. I think we talked about this. Do you buy that as a possible solution down the road real quick? What they might do?
The way the media landscape's going now, I buy any of it. I mean, I buy Netflix getting it and Turner producing it, or Amazon getting it and ESPN producing it with their announcers. Yeah, I could see any scenario where, ESPN says, we don't want to pay you $550 million, but we still want to get our toe in the water. We'll be a part of it in some capacity. Does NBC?
We'll pay you something. We'll produce this for you. We'll pay you something. We can still run more highlights because of that. We'll still have games on ESPN Plus, which they have on their platform.
Well, I saw something today that MLB.TV, I think they're trying to sell that as the Sunday night package with something there. I got to read a little bit more. I saw that late in my shift today as we was getting ready to do the podcast. So that's something I got to take a look at. I think it might have been. They got
to end up on a channel, whether it's with Fox, whether it's with Turner, whether it's the MLB network. Let's see for Sunday Night Baseball. Does it mean that much to them anymore? We'll find out.
What? It's a good question. How much does Sunday Night Baseball still resonate? Right. You just talked about the ratings. It's one of those things that's more probably nostalgia for people who just like Sunday night. There's the game.
Well, we talked about this. It used to be the biggest deal because there weren't that many national games in the 90s. So you got a national game on ESPN, and now the games are available everywhere. All of the games are available everywhere. You got to pay in some cases, subscribe, but they're all available. The novelty of it is just not there. I saw the TBS rating for the Yankees and the Brewers last Tuesday night. As we do this now, 8 days ago, barely got 500,000 people to watch on cable because the novelty of it is just, it's not there anymore.
I brought up the idea of, and I think Andrew Marchand might have echoed this. I don't know if he stole it from me or not. I just kid. But there's a lot of things I brought up, which was to sell these as series. You
brought it up on this pod, right?
Yes,
right.
Yes. You've got to sell the whole series. I got to get invested for 3 games to go to ESPN 3 nights, and not just one night where I'm getting the national team parachuting in. Give me the series. Maybe I buy the series from you, and that's what you get. And you get
do like a Friday night, a Saturday night, and then a Sunday night.
Yeah. Here's this is from John Lewis, Sports Media Watch, our buddy over there. MLB reportedly considers selling exclusive rights to MLB.TV out-of-market package as part of the deal to replace the expiring ESPN package.
And again, that's to sell it to somebody else. And I guess then show it through MLB.TV. I don't know. We'll see, because MLB.TV is their thing. So who knows?
The big thing that's been going on there is MLB is trying to get all the local teams to give them their rights. Well, the Yankees are saying we make too much money off of yes. We're not giving it to you.
Dodgers off spectrum. Exactly. In LA. Exactly.
Yeah,
they make too much money.
That's the fight that I think Major League Baseball is trying to help them see the forest through the trees of, hey, the whole league can be bigger if you just get on board. Instead, you're the only big one. And they're saying, well, we don't care if we're the only big one. And they're saying, let's let everybody become big. I don't know that the Yankees are too interested in that. By the way, one quick, Peter Schrager, free agent, goes from NFL Network and Fox to ESPN. That one kind of happened just in the
last few days.
First Take.
Yes. And Schrager, again, has worked very hard, built his brand up, was part of the original crew of Good Morning Football on the NFL Network, and ESPN is paying him a boatload of money, from what I was told, to grab him away as one of their personalities and use him for a lot of their different coverage. And the further interesting thing might be if ESPN buys NFL media, Peter Schrager might be back on the NFL Network and might be a guest appearing on Good Morning Football again, if that goes through, which is what the rumor is.
Yeah, kudos to NFL Network. They let him do a show, his last appearance there, when he knew he was leaving. So that was I heard him talking about that today.
Kyle Brandt is the last original member of that crew. But again, ESPN is in talks with the NFL to acquire NFL media, the NFL Network, etc. Schrager might be back there. Again, the NFL Red Zone falls under that umbrella too. Scott Hansen's deal is up, by the way, with the NFL Red Zone. He got nominated for Best Studio Host for an Emmy as well. Love Scott Hansen. What are they going to do with all of this? It'll play out this summer maybe on what are they going to do with all this with the NFL media. And the Good Morning Football show, has it devalued some because it's now in LA? There's musical chairs with the talent on it. Stay tuned.
What do you think of the ratings tonight for
the Luka return?
Yes.
The Luka return to Dallas. Typically, these NBA games get about 3 million. I saw that the Lakers got 3 or 4 million. This is going to be like a 3 or 4 million viewership situation for the Lakers and Luka Doncic, and we're seeing on the video Mike Breen, Doris Burke, Richard Jefferson are going to be on the call for ESPN. What's your prediction on how much the nation really cares here about his return to Dallas? Will this get 5 million people to watch on ESPN? Yeah. You think so?
Yep. I think you get a little bump from this. I think they talked about it enough. I mean, every time I have a television screen behind me in my studio, and every time I looked over my shoulder this morning, I had somebody pontificating about this game. So
of course,
I think people will check in. Luka against his former team. There's enough there. It's the Lakers. So I think, yes, you will get a bump, 4.5, 5 million, somewhere in that range.
And keep in mind, the Lakers are going to be a playoff team, and the Mavericks are terrible. And Kyrie Irving is out for the year, and Anthony Davis has been hurt since the trade. So there's not much storyline from a Maverick standpoint. But will they boo him? They put the thank you Luka shirts on all the chairs tonight in Dallas as we do this live.
No, I mean,
they're going to cheer him.
I think
they're
so.
going to boo the GM. What is it, Nico Harrison?
Nico Harrison. They're still mad at the team
for
trading him. They're still mad at the team for trading him. They're not going to boo Luka at all. Meanwhile, I'm stuck here with Philadelphia and Washington, to which I think I brought up on this show, which was I actually came up with a different spin on this. We've been yearning for a 70-game NBA season, right? Or less than 82. I think after 70 games is when you lock in the playoff teams. The teams that are out play in a tournament for the number 1 overall pick. The teams that are in the top 10 on both sides, the last month of the season is the in-season tournament for
the seeding.
All right, interesting. So that every game is being played between playoff teams.
But how do you handle, so you just don't have a schedule for 71 through 82? You just suddenly make the schedule based on who's in the playoffs or not, and then make a schedule.
You can make it a night. You do a whole thing where here are the pods and these are the teams and who you play. You know, the four play-in teams, you're in a pod, and the 8 through 5, you're in a, and those games all will have regular season. It'll go towards your regular season standings for your playoff seeding. But now you don't have a night where the Lakers are playing Dallas, a team that has no desire to win at all. So the whole month of the last month of the season, that becomes your in-season tournament, and it's all for seeding.
You always have these big picture solutions. I wonder if they're going to listen to you on that with the chase down. And of course, they now have the play-in situation for what? Help me. It's 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, and 10, right?
7, 8, 9, and 10
are in the play-in. So that's what they've done.
10 play each other.
7 and 8 play each other, right?
Those 7 and 8 play. The winner becomes the 7. The loser plays the winner of the 9-10 game to become the 8 seed.
And that was to include, obviously, 4 more teams at the end of the year for the playoffs and the one-game elimination. All right, well, we'll see how that ends up doing. Listen, we've been here a bit. Great stuff tonight, Mike Gill, with the takes on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. Our thanks again to Zach Gelb, Infinity Sports Radio Network, their afternoon weekday host, being with us. Let's see what the Luka game does tonight. Let's see what the Masters does this weekend. We'll stay on top of all the sports media comings and goings. Again, follow, subscribe on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify for the podcast. Find us on the pod. Find us on social media, Mike Gill Show YouTube channel. We're glad that you were with us for the takes on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast.